So welcome back to another episode here. Today we have Frank Randall. Frank is the financial advisor for medical professionals, and he is the founder of MedPro Financials. So Frank, welcome.
Thank you so much. Good to see you again. I think it's been a while since we got to connect. So excited. I see you putting out content regularly. It looks awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just getting started, so I'm learning the whole podcasting thing, but hey, better late than never, right?
You got the professional setup, and just like Gary Vee says, just keep posting and keep doing it, and good things will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So as I bring guests on, I usually ask them about their life story and about their business. But in the beginning, I set kind of like not a bar, but like a reference point of where are you today in your life? And that is like holistic, like business, family, home, like everything. Like who are you today, or where are you in life today?
Well, I'd say today it's very busy. Personally, I have a 3.5-year-old girl and a 7-month year old boy. My wife's a nurse practitioner, so she's busy working full time. With the kids. Actually, the struggle of the day, truthfully, is daycare issues. Like today was a great example. I was supposed to have daycare coverage for the kids, but they called off, so find myself getting pulled in many different directions, but yeah, no, it's a combination of evolving my practice, really finding the right type of niching down to the right type of clients that I'm working with, and really just balancing that with home. So it's busy, but I really would have it no other way, honestly.
Nice. So then, like, now that we know kind of where you are today, how did you get to this point? And if you could go back as far as you want to childhood or middle school, high school, like who was Frank back then?
Very different than Frank right now, I can tell you that much. I always like to joke and feel that I kind of felt comfortable and came into my own probably like in my early 20s, and I think, a lot of the stuff earlier in my life, like I believe everything happens for a reason, but I think, early to mid 20s is when I kind of, I feel like became myself, right? Became confident with who I am, interacting with people, and I never could have imagined being a business owner or even a financial advisor. But I found that just like life happens, and I think everything happens for a reason. And I guess really at the end of the day, it's just a matter of just being adaptive and changing, right? Like I was a very different person back then, and I'll probably be different in 15 years from now, But I never would have imagined myself with the beautiful house we have, the kids, the wife, the career, as a 15-year-old. That just totally different person.
Yeah. So give us a little bit more information, or me and the audience, a little bit more information of who you were back then. Like, were you outgoing when you were in high school? Were you like a socialite, or were you kind of more reserved?
Yeah. So I was much more reserved, and I think I kind of feel like I'm kind of inclusive sometimes, right? Or introverted rather, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes my career and who I work with forces me to be an extrovert. So like even today, I would still like to just kind of keep it at home and be quiet. But yeah, earlier on, I was way more, I think, shy. Maybe didn't have confidence, and there's probably a whole 4-hour story we can get into about all that. But I think once I kind of moved out of my house, finished college, and I kind of realized that stop caring what people think about me and just really be myself is when that kind of switched.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I was definitely much more, quiet, reserved. I always tell people I don't think I really blossomed until after college. But that's
Okay.
that's my take.
Yeah. I mean, usually people debate whether a trait is a nurture type of a thing, or is it a nature type of a thing? Like even introversion, extroversion. My understanding is it's a nature thing. Like you're born either an introvert or extrovert. But some people will say it also depends on your situation, how you grew up. Then you go in one direction or the other.
Yeah, I think probably definitely growing up, personally there's a lot of conflict, to be fair, right? Personally at the house, and I think some of those instances really helped me become a problem solver and someone who isn't really afraid of tackling difficult issues. So,
Hmm.
what I tell myself is, earlier on I was definitely, more introverted, but I'm thankful for everything that happened, even the bad, because I truly believe it made me, who I am today. But yeah, maybe it's a combination of both. I would probably say a little nature, a little nurture. Um, you know, maybe not exactly 50-50, but probably some blend in there.
Yeah.
But
So in high school, did you play any sports?
So I did just like freshman football, and I wrestled for 1 year, and I broke my arm in wrestling my first year, and I never did it again. And a lot of my friendships happened to be outside of school, right? So
Hmm.
I was a part of a youth group, and I had friends really all across the county in Rochester here. So instead of doing more traditional high school type things, I took a cross country road trip with a couple of my friends from youth group at 17 years old. So like I did different things that maybe wasn't like typical high school stuff. Super grateful for, but yeah, the sports. I broke my arm and I was like, "Up, I'm over it." I think that was the rest of it.
Yeah. And then as far as academics, were you like an A student, 4.0 type of student or?
No, I was like just the minimum to pass. Like especially in high school, it was just like get in and get out as quick as I could. And then in college, I didn't know what to major in, so I got a bachelor's in communications because I love talking to people and I felt like that was easy.
Mhm.
And it was easy. Honestly, it was kind of a joke. And then I went back and got my master's because I thought, why not? Let's just get a master's degree in public administration. And even in college, it was more just pass. It wasn't really super straight A student. So um,
Where did you get advice during high school, like between high school and college, whether you should go to school, like college, or whether you should just go get a job or maybe go into military? Did you
yeah,
have like
I
advisors or? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one time at our old house in my living room with my dad and my half brother, and I remember I was probably senior in high school, and I was saying I don't want to go to college, just let me work or do something else. And I remember both of them being like, "No, you're going to college," and I kind of just fell into it, and I guess that I did. But I was really kind of on my own in that sense of figuring it out. My parents weren't really that much of an influence in college. There was some personal stuff floating around, but to me it felt more like something easy to do instead of going into the workforce. And I couldn't really, like, for example, my wife wanted to be a nurse practitioner, so she went to school to be a nurse. I had
Hmm.
no clue what I wanted to do, so I truthfully just picked an easy degree. I
Hmm.
did a community college for 2 years, then I transferred over to a 4-year school. Still working full time. I mean, I've been working full time since I was 16, just because I love working. So it was kind of a combination of both.
Hmm. So what were you doing like from 16 on as far as work? What kind of work did you do?
Well, I would say like my first real job. Well, we had a family Italian ice business that I would always help out when I was young. But probably my first real job was probably working at Quizno Subs. There was a fast ferry terminal in Rochester that never, took off the ground. But I was working in that terminal at Quiznos, and then I worked at GameStop. Then I worked at AT&T, and so I was always in like retail sales, customer service jobs. Um, and then, after AT&T, I went to work for a bank, and just things kind of progressed from there. But it was always like client facing. But yeah, I've always had a passion for staying busy, and worked full time through college. And maybe I didn't have as much fun as other people, but the student loan debt was is minimum, right? So for me, it paid off in that capacity.
Yeah. Where would you say that your kind of work ethic or wanting to work hard comes from?
This is the nature versus nurture, right? 2.0. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I would probably say, like, for me, one of the things I love about working, especially as kind of an entrepreneur, is that nobody can take that away from me. So the work that I put in is going to get rewarded, and I think probably some of it is probably ego driven a little bit, because I've always loved being a top performer at work. When the monthly newsletters or data reports come out, it was always like important for me to be high on the list. So getting that sense of recognition, I think, always kind of motivated me and fueled like that competitiveness inside of me. And that's probably why I always gravitated more towards like sales jobs.
Hmm.
I I do remember probably when I was 16 or 17, I like got a job at Target and I worked there for 2 days and I'm like, nope, not doing this. I just like it's just not entertaining enough, stocking shelves. But I don't know where it came from. It's definitely probably more nature on that side
Hmm.
than nurture if I had to pin it to that.
Yeah. And you mentioned sales roles. Like, did you kind of naturally, not naturally, but did you just by happenstance fall into those kind of roles, or did somebody push you into the direction of sales?
I'd say probably naturally. I think that one of the things that I like to do is I'm very analytical in the sense that for me, when I'm dealing with, even back in the day, dealing, at AT&T or a sales job, like how do I solve the problem? And I found that sales, rewarded you fairly. Well, fairly maybe isn't the right word, but depending on who you work for, but it rewarded you for solving that problem. Um, and so I think, and even any sort of sales job, I remember would always kind of push me to perform better because sure you have to work, as a part of a team, but it's ultimately on me.
Hmm.
Whereas, if I were to be, a non-sales job, like a teacher, for example, to me that seems a little too monotonous. It's the same thing every day. I can't mix it up, and I think naturally that just kind of pushed me, you know, in that direction. I guess would be my answer. But yeah, I'd say it's just happened to fall into it. But
Hmm. So kind of going back a little bit, back to the high school days, who were your friends? What were they like? What was your circle of friends like in high school?
yeah, so I guess I'm proud to still have like there's three guys that I've been friends with for I don't know 20 years now or whatnot, and so we're still friends to this day. And one of them went to my high school, two of them didn't, and that's again a lot of my friends were outside of high school. They were really a part of this youth group that I was a part of. And we've all kind of evolved and changed throughout the years.
Hmm.
These three friends that I'm thinking of, we disagree on many things when it comes to sports, politics, or whatnot. But we still have that common theme, like we would do anything for each other. And so I'm like very fortunate to have that. And I think there's only a finite amount of like friends or relationships anyone can have, and it's really important to pick and choose those wisely. But yeah, no, I think we've all seen each other, grow and evolve. Being single guys, families. We all have families now, so it's been a cool journey. At least saying to have the same group of 3 or 4 guys this whole time.
What would you say is the bond between the four of you? Like, what's holding you together?
Well, that's a good question. I think initially it was youth group, kind of church. We've all kind of evolved in a different way from that capacity. But I think it's just I don't know. I mean, just the shared experiences. All the ups and downs that we've been to. Like it feels more like a brother, right? Like good, bad. You don't always have to agree on things. Uh, yeah, I think, and I'm thinking of two of them right now where we disagree on a lot, but at the end of the day, like these are the people that I would do anything for, and I think it's just really important to carve out time for those people. I don't know. I mean, it's probably rooted in our formative years, right?
Hmm.
14 to 20 years old, around each other all the time, hanging out every single day. And I will say we maybe kind of lost touch for a couple years, but I remember vividly we all got back together in 2016, 2015, started a group chat, and like from that day on, the group chat has been active since 2015, and that to this day really keeps us connected because we're so busy with family and work. Um, so the group chat today is a big deal.
Nice. Yeah. So you went to school, went to college. What did you do after college? Did you go like after you got your bachelor's degree? Did you go right away to get master's?
Yeah, I feel like I took a year off. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I remember talking to one of the teachers there and talking to me about this Master's of Public Administration degree. It's essentially for people who want to get into fundraising or politics or government work. And I've always loved politics. I loved government work. And I truthfully wasn't sure like what I wanted to do, but it sounded interesting. And I was like, well, I'm working. Let me just do something else. So, I got the degree, did a lot of fundraising work, like fundraising studies. I never really got into fundraising professionally. I do some fundraising in a volunteer capacity now, but I was still in sales jobs the whole way. And do I regret any of the college stuff? No, I'm not using any of it in a professional setting outside of like some of the classes I remember in the master's degree is conflict management and communication behavior and things that are more tangible. So that's kind of like the academic route that I went is more class based instead of like degree focused. But I think that's a story on that.
Yeah. So what did you do after that? After you got your master's degree, what job did you get into?
Yes, this was probably 2014-ish, I think. After the master's degree, I think I was still working at AT&T as a sales manager, and then I actually found myself at LA Fitness. So I was a general manager. Well, first I did sales, and I worked up the ladder, and I became a general manager. So, working at the club, it was 6 days a week, 50, 60 hours, great for like a single guy, to just work and have fun, but definitely couldn't raise a family working there. And it was probably there for 2 or 3 years. I did meet my wife working at LA Fitness. It was funny. She came in one time to get a membership, and I signed her up for a gym membership and became friends, and the rest is history. So that was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And go ahead. Question.
No. Yeah.
And then really after that, there was like probably 3 or 4 of us LA Fitness employees that kind of got recruited and went to a bank, ironically enough, as a store manager at a bank. So that was, serendipity, I guess, just how that happened. But it was good times there, good memories for sure.
Yeah. What was that process of getting recruited like?
Well, there was one guy that was working at LA Fitness, and I forgot how he got the opportunity at the bank, but he went over there, and then I think they told him, hey, we're still onboarding. I think they must have been cleaning house or getting a whole handful of people because they hired 4 of us directly as branch managers at a bank. And that was kind of scary for me. Like I was a sales manager at a gym, a manager in a phone store, but like the bank seemed a little more serious, right? It is. And so it was kind of scary. I'm like, man, what am I doing? I just got to tell myself, just get through the next 3 to 6 months. And Frank, you'll pick it up like you normally do. But they had spots, and it probably took about 4 or 5 months to find a location for me. But 3 or 4 of us went over all at the same time, and that kind of gave me like my first taste at finances, at kind of more a professional setting. It was still very salesy. So I was in one of the locations that was a bank instead of a grocery store. So there was a lot more, I would say, sales activity instead of like traditional being a teller, right? You're interacting with people in the aisles, trying to get them to do business. And it was fun, but definitely a little overwhelming at first. Like, what did I get myself into? I have no experience.
Yeah. In the meantime, while you're working these jobs, did you do anything outside of gaining knowledge within the jobs to kind of better yourself, to learn, like continuously learn or improve yourself?
To be fair, I don't think a lot of, I don't think that happened regularly as it does now. I think, if I look back at that time, the bank honestly had a great training and development program, but if I look back at that time, it was probably more just like treading water and surviving and just like really understanding, how the whole banking system works. A lot of it was more managing people, right? It was just people calling off sick, you got to cover shifts, a lot of human resources stuff, which was always challenging. But I feel like my professional development really changed when I started the current job that I'm in now, really kind of working for myself instead of working for a salary. Mm-hmm. If I'm being fair about it, I think that's probably, I was, back in time at the bank, I was probably overly concerned with politics and sports more so than I am now, than the development stuff.
Mm-hmm. What changed? What would you say changed about you in that sense? Like, if you were more into sports and politics then and now, sounds like you're not too much.
Yeah, I'm still a huge Bills fan, so go Bills. It's obviously really important next couple games. Yeah. But I think what changed is when you're a W-2 employee, right? Like really, you're exchanging your salary for time. Right? At the end of the day, I knew the bank was going to pay me X amount of dollars per year. Sure, there were sales metrics that you can hit, but even if I was 80% better than the next guy, I'm only going to get 5% more because they have banding or limits or whatnot. And so I think when I made the switch at age 30 to go from really W-2 type jobs to working for yourself, you have no choice but to keep evolving and getting better, right? I mean, not only for my clients, there's obviously news and taxes and rules and things that I have to be aware of, but more just being a better version of myself from a financial planning standpoint. So it was almost like an easy thought to be like, okay, now I'm going to bet on myself. How can I use my time in a way to read more books, listen to podcasts, practice. I remember starting the new job as a financial advisor in January of 2020, right before COVID, and I would just like practice scripts, record myself, and just figure out like how can I present complicated things in a simple way to people. And that's when I started gravitating towards some like professional development, podcasts and books. So that would probably be the switch, honestly.
Mm-hmm. So you had kind of a mental switch between W-2 and 1099, working for somebody else versus working for yourself. How, like I went through that same thing as well. Like when you're working for somebody else, it's like, okay, well, I'm putting this effort in for the paycheck, but I cannot give unlimitedly to this company or whatever, because what am I going to leave for myself, kind of a thing, in terms of time, effort, all that kind of stuff. But when I've became an owner of a company, now it's like I'm kind of giving because I'm looking at the long-term success of the company, not the short-term. So short-term, I'm putting in a lot of effort, I'm getting nothing back. but I'm kind of like banking on the long-term success of the company. So I think that mind shift is kind of critical, but also like unless you go through it, potentially people don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, if the only, I guess, way in a W-2 capacity is if there's some, ownership opportunity, like in the medical world, take a, like dentists, for example, like a lot of times they'll buy into a practice at some point. So like there's the anticipation or hope that sure they'll be W-2 now, but there's opportunity to buy in or start your own practice. But, working at the bank, one of the things that was so frustrating to me is and maybe this is just not ego, but I felt like I cared way more about the clients at my little branch, right, than like I probably should have, or what I was getting paid to care about them. Mm-hmm. And so at this point when I'm interacting with a client, it's all on me. So I need to like give them the best version of me. I need to keep learning different ways to communicate. And I think the last 4 years in this industry, I've become a much better communicator, skills on how to explain things, speed, pace, eye contact. And, you're right though, I can't, in my opinion, I can't worry too much about, where I'm going to be, 10, 15 years from now. I just have to like do my best today, and just know that the rest will work out. That's kind of my mindset, at least at this stage in my career.
Right. But you're not, I mean, I don't know. You speak for yourself. Like you're not thinking like, oh, I'm not going to put in the full effort that I can right now because I'm not getting paid how much I want to be paid right now. You're putting in full effort and beyond right now, not because you're going to get anything potentially back right now, but in the future you're hoping that okay, with building client by client and kind of growing the practice, the company, then you're going to get the return.
Yeah, 100%. I think, this is my 4th year. I'm finally back and have exceeded what I left, right, in the past, right? The first year or two, massive pay cut, right? Obviously super thankful that my wife, has a great, good income, being a career changer. Some things happen to fall in place, financially for us. But yeah, I mean, the first 2 years, it was like, man, this sucks, right? Like I'm making minimum wage, less than that. Hopefully this is going to work out. And, the biggest enemy is the head trash you tell yourself. And, in my industry, from, first meeting with the potential client to maybe at the end, it can be months until there's any sort of exchange based on my business model of compensation. So, you just have to trust the process and know that early on it's going to be this roller coaster, but now like the ups and downs are like not as bad. I think usually that 3 to 5 years in like the financial service industry is really when it gets easier. But yeah, the first 2 years it was like bet on yourself, study, put in the hours, not counting the licenses and stuff you have to do, right? Like at one point I'm working 2 full-time jobs, like working on the business and getting licensed, and
Yeah.
it was a lot.
Right. So what was your life like starting the company, being a husband, and I think you had a child already at the time as well. So like your work-life balance,
Yeah.
all of that, what was that like?
Yeah, so so it came in January 2020. So to be, in January 2020, I interviewed at a company, Alliance Advisory Group, and so that's still the company that I'm a part of. I've just recently kind of DBA'd and formed my own brand, MedPro Financial, so I'm still a part of the overall firm. There's about 45 advisors at the firm. They've been around since 1979, so I have a lot of resources at the firm to serve my clients, but only up until recently I really started my own kind of brand. But to answer your question, it was January 2020. My wife's pregnant at the time, and 2 or 3 months kind of in of training and starting to work on my skills, and then the world shuts down, right? And I had just bought a house previously, a couple months prior, so that was fortunate timing. And COVID hits, so office is closed. So I'm doing like these conversations and meetings with clients solo, and I remember, for me, Zoom has only been all I've ever done for clients because I came into it during COVID, and I remember, I can't imagine, I guess, what it would be like trying to drag clients into the office where 95% of my meetings are virtual today. So that's probably a positive from the COVID experience. But work-life balance, I would say, the first year or two, it was just get licensed, because you have to go through 4 different licenses. At least that's what I did. Get experience, get reps in, right? Start building your brand, putting your name out, networking with people. And I think now I've started to shift my mindset in the sense of, now I'm blocking out family and personal time. The first year or two, I would meet with anybody and everybody at any given time of the day just to get some activity. It could be 8 o'clock at night, Sunday at 3 p.m. But now, I have 2 kids. And I have a lot of clients to serve from the past. So now it's a matter of, more structure, right? Monday I kind of block out time with my team to, prep for the week. I do most of my meetings Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday is more like wrap everything up, work on the business, do awesome things like this podcast today, and, really protect my time. So in the last year or so, I've become a real big fan of time blocking. My Outlook calendar is color coded and, it looks like, Greek. But, I think that's kind of the work-life balance evolution for me. It was seasonal. Right? Early on, ramping up your career, I'm dumping hours into work, and I think the family life maybe sacrificed a little bit, and me and my wife knew that going into it. But now, we're talking about putting my wife to part-time, right, and taking kids out of full-time daycare, and now it's kind of shifting. So, it's not static, but that's kind of where we are at today.
Mm-hmm. So, when you got married and now you have kids, so 2 questions. What about marriage, what did you experience that you did not expect? And then the same question for kids, like once you had kids, what about kids that you didn't think about that you have experienced?
Well, I think the easy one with the kids is I didn't realize or think that I would love it so much. I mean, it sounds corny, but it's just like you talk, and for anyone you're listening, if you're parents, you understand. But it's, it gives you purpose, and just seeing, how my 3.5-year-old daughter is growing up and just being so polite and so cute and so thoughtful and nice. like I never like your parents always say growing up you'll understand one day, and it's so cliche, but it is so spot on.
Yeah.
And so that's probably the easy answer. Um, from a marriage standpoint, up until I met Katie, I honestly didn't really date. I mean, like the longest kind of relationship I had was really only a couple months. Like I didn't take anything serious. Katie, my wife, is the only woman I've ever said I love you to in that capacity. And I didn't really have a lot of maybe experience in long-term dating, whether that's good or bad. Ask her, I guess. But what I probably learned is both parties have to give 100%. It's not the 50-50, and you've probably maybe heard that before. And I'm still a work in progress. Right? I think the last year or so, I feel proud of kind of the accomplishments that I've made. I think earlier on in my marriage or relationship, I would tend to be unnecessarily combative just for the sake of proving a point. Mm-hmm. But at this point, I think it's more just like big picture. Like, what do we pick and choose your battles? Like, is this really important to me? Apologizing more, communicating more, and just really fighting my own ego. That's the truth, in my opinion.
Nice. So you learned quite a bit.
Yeah, and honestly, I learned quite a lot how my wife really takes lead and teaches my kids. Honestly, like she's like I learned a lot from observing how she teaches them things, and so sometimes I don't want to take that for granted, but work in progress. We all are.
Yeah. What's your social life like today? Like you have your own company, your own business, you have family, kids, everything else going on in your life. Do you still make time for friends or going out places, or like what's that like?
Yeah, so the group of guys, my three guys, Johnny, Matt, and Tommy, we try to get together, every so often. I mean, we're obviously always connected by phone, but we all have kids and we're busy, but we have a couple things that we do regularly. There's a Jazz festival up here in Rochester. We always go to those, but so see them periodically. I'm really involved in a local Rotary club. It's called Rock City Rotary. I'm the fundraising director there. So it's a group of young professionals volunteering, connecting, engaging with the city of Rochester here. So do a lot of work with them that kind of scratches that social itch a little bit. But other than that, there's really not much time these days. We're still getting used to two kids and triaging that. And I'm more of the person that would rather sit on my couch and watch the Bills game than go to the stadium. And that's like the introvert in me, or rather play a game of chess on my phone and do that than maybe go out hang out with friends all the time. But it's busy these days for sure.
Yeah. And over the years, since high school, since you were a kid to now, what have you learned about wealth management and money management?
Yeah, I think the big thing is that it's mainly psychological for people. Even myself, you can look at numbers and math all day, but if someone has a barrier to something, it doesn't matter, and it really is like money behaviors. And like an easy example that comes to mind is I'll work with clients that have student loans, and maybe their interest rate is 3% on the loans, and it makes sense to not pay them off, but they have just like this mental block or this weight on their shoulder. They want to get rid of it, and no amount of math or numbers can convince them any other way. So we have to kind of coach to that. We have to understand it. And so from a money standpoint, what I've learned in my personal journey, habits is important. I didn't really become a good saver with money up until a couple of years ago. I tended to spend it on experiences, and then obviously as I kind of grew up and family, your priorities change. But to me, the biggest lesson, it's all psychology. It's just feeling, understanding that most people don't want to work their whole life, retire and spend their money for 10, 15 years. Like most people our age, I feel, want to live life and have experiences. And maybe I can't put $50,000 away for my daughter for school, but I can give her an amazing 18 years here at our house with vacations, trips, food, fun. Um, yeah, that's probably what comes to mind.
Hmm.
Psychology behind it, behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to passion for work or life calling, or people use all kinds of terms for it. I guess first question is, do you think that thing even exists? Is it like you find your passion, or does your passion find you, or is it none of them,
Or both of them, right? I don't know.
or both?
Yeah, I mean, I never would have thought I would be a financial advisor, right? So like that, I can tell you, it's my passion now. I never would have thought that's what I would have done. So maybe it found me in that capacity. You know, I think, I guess professionally, I would look at professionally and personally. You know, professionally, I think it found me. It was a matter of circumstances. You know, opportunity. You know, from looking at different careers and actually. Well, I don't know. Now that I think about it, I remember vividly the reason why I got into financial planning was in 2019. My wife's dad had passed away. You know, he left some money, and I remember we went to a financial advisor to kind of figure out some of the stuff. And I remember vividly walking through the offices, and she said something like to the extent of, "Hey, you would be pretty good at this. Like, you should think about doing this." Because I had always talked about wanting to own my own thing, and that started, you know, the wheels spinning. So I don't know if I found her, then indirectly found it through this. I don't know how you would define it, but that's like where I really started thinking about it. And you know, personally, I think it's probably a mixture of both. But you know, if you're not passionate or enjoying what you're doing, I think people typically generally have some control over it. You know, there have been situations in the past, personally and professionally, that I wasn't, you know, happy or satisfied with. But I just know that if you keep putting your foot in front of each other and look for opportunities, they come knocking. So I guess it found me. If that's probably my take on that, at least professionally.
Yeah. I mean, it's like what you experienced going out of high school, getting into college, or basically starting your life after high school. A lot of high schoolers, they don't know what they want to do, and um, I mean, like for my son, he's in high school, he's not a senior yet, but it's like, how do you give him advice in terms of, oh, you should do this or that? Um,
Mm-hmm.
it seems to me like, as long like what you were saying, put one foot in front of the other. As long as you're working hard at something, you continue to kind of open the doors in front of you, and then eventually you're going to find something that will work for you. What do you think about like a calling or a passion, or like how to discover it?
Yeah, yeah. I definitely believe that you know, in you know, the karma law, I guess, like good things will happen to those who are just, you know, in that same mindset. And I know, like to the high school point, like not knowing what you'd want to do, like I kind of always knew that, you know, I enjoyed people, I loved sales, I loved problem solving. I didn't know what that meant professionally, but I always found myself professionally going to jobs that allowed me to do those things that I loved. And if I probably became a financial advisor at 21 out of college, I probably would have failed and flunked out. I mean, I feel like all the circumstances and experience that I had led me to be successful. But you know, I think that, you know, it's important to always like be in the black with people in the sense of like giving more than you're taking. And you know, there have been times when things in my practice haven't gone the right way, and it's easy to get down on myself and be like, man, that was a bad interaction with the client, or something negative happened. And that like negative self-talk is crippling to me, and I'm always like, I tend to be really hard on myself. And one of the things that come to mind, I forget who told me this, like, and this is me personally. I think me personally, sometimes when something doesn't go my way, it's like the drain at the end of the bathtub, like it starts to like spiral, and I have to like tell myself like, get out of the tub, like it's okay, don't spiral, and I tend to go to the worst possible place. I think I'm only starting to evolve in the sense of like controlling my thoughts, right? Like, don't be negative, you know, be positive. Even if life stinks right now, you know, put one foot in front of the other, make good decisions, you know, be good to people. And yeah, whether it's a calling, the universe, you know, however you want to define it, I think there's some rewards there. unless it's just me telling myself that. But I think it's true.
Yeah. So you mentioned when you were younger in school, you were part of a youth group. Um, what, in terms of your spirituality or faith, what do you consider yourself today?
That's a question. Yeah, I what I'll say is, growing up, I don't really regret anything. If I were to look at the church or youth group that I was in when I was younger, it's probably not what I would align with today. I think that as I kind of grew up and experienced things, um, I don't want to say that I began to kind of think for myself. I still believe in a higher power. I would call myself a Christian, but I think it's definitely in a different capacity than what it was when I was 15 years old. And I don't know if that's because of, again, circumstances. My life personally at that time was challenging, and so I found a lot of peace and safety in the friendship in the youth group. I was there all the time, and I would have it no other way. It's led to a lot of my friendships and who I am. And I think even back into youth group days, teaching, Bible study, right, at school, or going out in the streets and talking to people, that kind of played a role in my sales, communication ability professionally later down the road, is what I tell myself. But yeah, that's I think part of the calling, right? Like, it all kind of aligns with personally, professionally, spiritually. Yeah, that's my take.
So you said you would still consider yourself a Christian?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Do you
think
go?
in the capacity that again, to tread lightly here, but I would say, like, in the capacity I was before, I feel like, looking back, if I was an outsider looking back at my 14-year-old self right now, there have been some things that happened in that church that maybe would have given me some red flags. Maybe I didn't know any differently as a 14-year-old, now as a 35-year-old. So it's an evolution of it. But what does a Christian mean, right? I mean, it's just a term, I guess, in the capacity. There's many different subsects or groups, but that's just my personal journey, my personal opinion.
Yeah. No, I'm just curious because a lot of, not a lot, I mean, there's people who grow up as a Christian and then they go to school, college, and they come out basically like denouncing Christianity and so on.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of wondering, like, what's the reasoning? What happened between when they were a Christian and when they're no longer a Christian? Is it really just information, or is it some kind of emotions or experiences, negative experiences that they had that they're kind of
Yeah.
holding back against whatever happened? Or
I think probably negative experiences too. I mean, if you're gonna, and I'm making this up, if you're gonna put an arbitrary scale of zeal from 0 to 100, maybe back in high school I'm at like an 85, right? I give myself like a 40 to 50 right now, and I don't know if that's just because it was too much in one direction earlier on, but I still believe, and I think that it's more personal than I think people realize. I think I sometimes get turned off by absolutisms, in the sense of people being dogmatic in the sense, right, and saying this is the only way. Like, what do we know? We're human, right? Like, if we're talking about there's a God and something bigger, it's kind of hubris on us to say that we have it all figured out. And that to me is kind of the change that I experienced personally over the last 15 years.
Mm-hmm. How is faith and business and family today? How is it integrated in your life, or if it's integrated at all?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm still kind of, I feel, early on in my new professional journey, right? So I think that I'm still in this mode of, and I'm just kind of turning the corner. Like, the last 3 or 4 years has been so focused on business and growth and getting things set up that there's been some sacrifices, I think, in other parts of my life, mainly in the family when it comes to work and schedule. So I'm really looking forward to this next chapter of my life of more time to do the things that are important, more time, to enjoy family, enjoy friends. But it wasn't easy. I mean, a lot of sacrifices, I think, from a time capacity were made, socially, that were made. So yeah, no, the way that I'm looking at it now is I'm happy. I'm excited that I think, not that I've made it because I'm only 4 years into it, but I feel like the corner is being turned and things are definitely getting easier in all aspects.
Hmm. What life lessons had the most impact on you?
I guess the two life lessons that and I don't know where I heard these, but I guess the two that come to mind um, is that every minute matters, right? So like for me, I know that we all have the same amount of time any given day, and so for me, it's the concept of every minute matters. And so whether it's personally or professionally, we don't get a second chance at doing this, right? We get 18 laps around this, 18 years with our kids, 18 summers, right? We only get a finite amount of time. And so with all of today's conveniences and luxuries, it's easy to waste time. And so I think the big life lesson for me is, every minute of every day matters. And it's not, like the hours that you work, but it's like what you do in those hours. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really, like, I'll use this as an example. Today, daycare called off. My mom's having knee surgery. Tomorrow, I'm helping her. But I got all the work that I really needed to get done, this week. Plus, I have a great team. So having the freedom to do that is powerful. So the lesson, I guess, would be, again, personally, professionally, spiritually, socially, guard your time. Don't waste it because you only get one shot at this life. And yeah, every minute matters. That's my take.
Yeah. Do you have any routines that kind of help you to stay successful daily? Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think preparation is a big key to my routine. So I do my weekly preparation on Sundays or Mondays, and to me, if I'm not like prepared for the week, I'm just kind of all over the place. I have a difficulty going from task to task, and someone once said, people don't really multitask. They just do different things at a different amount of capacity. You're not truly multitasking. So the biggest routine that I have is preparation from a business standpoint, and what gets measured what gets measured drives results, right? So like for me, I'm really big on data and measurements and knowing like what are the amount of clients I want to onboard this year, what are the things that I have to focus on, because otherwise I'm just kind of chaotic. And if I don't put those like systems in place from a time standpoint, from a business development activity standpoint, it's easier to get distracted, and you may not feel the repercussions of it that day. But 3 months down the road, you're wondering, why isn't business growing? Well, it's because I took time off, 2-3 weeks, consecutively in the past. I think probably professionally that's what it would be. The other thing I would say, though, Jerry, coming to mind is like shifting from work mode, right? So like whether I'm coming home from the office or shutting down for the day, taking 5 or 10 minutes to, for me, listen to EDM music or classical music or play a game of chess or play, Monster with my toddler, like doing something for me to shift my mindset, because it's really hard for me to turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always thinking about business and clients and what could I have done better, but like forcing myself to kind of like power down business Frank and boot up like family Frank, or being aware of it, I think has been very impactful.
Yeah. What in your life, what do you feel like brings you meaning and significance to your life?
I think it's the relationships, specifically with family, friends, and clients. So, family-wise, you do anything for your kids. Always want to be a better husband, always want to be a better dad. So I think that kind of goes without saying. Want to give my kids the life that I never had, growing up. Friend-wise, I think we kind of already talked about that. Having those close group, your tribe almost. I think, we as a species aren't like meant to be so global as we are. We can talk to anybody. We're talking today, but like, even on social media, right? I think there's some power behind like a small tribe, a small unit. It wasn't that long ago that families would live within 5 to 10 mile radius of each other, and the nuclear family, I think, is what they call it. And now people have kind of spread out, across the country, across the state. So that's something important to stay close. And purpose-wise, professionally, the work that we do for clients gives me, impactful purpose, right? I can, think of a handful of clients right now where, someone passed away early, or someone, had massive credit card debt, right? And we help them with those things, and just getting the gratitude from them is so rewarding, because when it comes to money and finances, people aren't taught that, or they're taking advice blindly from, TikTok or social media or MSNBC or their, neighbors, cousins, uncle who does it part-time. So I think, getting that sense of purpose to me is what, keeps me going. But they're all interconnected, right? Like, purpose and success professionally leads me to live the life that I want at home and stay connected with my friends. So it's relationship driven, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you find that you are curious about learning new topics or new information?
Yeah, I am. I kind of think of myself almost as kind of like a sponge, in the sense. Like, I love taking in data. I'm really nerdy when it comes to that. I just love taking in facts, and I think I also kind of professionally have to be. There's always different things happening in the world when it comes to money. So yeah, no, I'm generally pretty curious. I think I think the mark of a good financial advisor is to be curious about your clients. You have to ask a lot of questions. And I think, again, back to what you asked maybe 10, 20 minutes ago about professional development, finding ways to, improve your craft, whether it's through books, podcasts. But yeah, my natural disposition is learn more. There's only so much time we have. Suck it all in. So.
And do you think that that's something you kind of learned along the way, or do you think it was a natural thing, you were born with it?
I feel like that's more natural. If I had I don't know if we're keeping score of nature versus nurture, but I think that one is more nature, in the sense that some people just, in my opinion, are more curious, have a desire to learn. It doesn't make them any better or worse than the other, but unless maybe someone can find something they're really passionate about, and then that kind of unlocks that, desire to learn more. Maybe that could be probably a truth to that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. What else would you want to share about yourself?
Man, what do I want to share about myself?
What are some things that almost nobody knows, but you don't mind sharing, so you'll share it?
Let's see. Well, that's a great question. I think some people know this. One of my favorite hobbies is to play chess. I play competitive chess, actually. So to me, that's very meditative and therapeutic, right? So when I go, there's a chess club in Rochester. I'm very fortunate. Not every city has them, but when I do get to go to the chess club, it's very therapeutic for me, just to kind of sit down and block out everything and only focus on the next 20 moves that I have to do for a client. That's the first thing that comes to mind, honestly. I'm kind of an open book when it comes to everything else. I guess the other thing that comes to mind is, I'm a very competitive person, and I've learned to not compare myself to others. Someone said comparison is the thief of joy, and I used to really always compare myself to, whether my peers or people above me, or different stages of their career. But I think in the last 2 years or so, the mindset has shifted to just be competitive with yourself. Be better than I was last year. Be better than I was yesterday. I don't know. That was a great question. Maybe come back to that one, because those are the first two that I thought of. But
yeah. Yeah. No, at this point, what I would want to ask you would be more about your business. So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing today with your business, what kind of offerings, or just more information about your business.
Yeah. So, when I started as a financial advisor, really was working with, many different types of people. But, I found, again, I saw the work that my wife did. So she's a nurse practitioner. I saw the commitment that she had to work. I remember helping her study, all the sacrifices sacrifices she made. And in the medical field, and probably other fields too, there's not a lot of mental bandwidth, I think, at the end of the day to think about, things like money and how do we make the right decisions. And so my whole mission, I guess, is to help take away the financial stress for medical professionals so that they can help better serve their clients, have a better work-life balance, get that peace of mind to know that they're doing something right. I tend to take, a fact-based approach. So when I meet a client, I like to kind of keep it basic, where we'll have a build meeting with someone and we'll give them what we call a financial scorecard. Think of it like an MRI almost, where let's take a look at your financial world today. And most people are financially disorganized. Most people have multiple bank accounts, old retirement accounts. There's the car insurance guy, the tax person, the investment manager, the mortgage broker, the real estate guy, the life insurance guy. You can keep going on. But those people don't ever get together at a table and say, here's Jerry's plan, hypothetically. Like, they're making recommendations, and maybe they're the right recommendations, but they're never kind of like in harmony or in concert with the client. So that's really what we try to do. We try to be kind of like that comprehensive stop, and there are some things that my team does for clients, like specifically investment accounts, IRAs, disability insurances, life insurances. Some things we don't directly do, but we're gonna help you along the way, like loan refinance, student loan forgiveness, budgeting. And I think what I found over the last year or so, focusing on medical professionals, they really appreciate someone who specializes in that craft. Because I'm married to a nurse practitioner, I'm a part of the New York State Society of Physician Assistants, so I'm a part of a handful of state societies as a resource. What they tell me is they appreciate having that expert. So I've kind of just niched down, and I do have clients who are referrals from friends and family who are in the medical space that we'll take on, but most of the new business is helping people be financially confident. And the last thing I'll say is really the 4 steps that we focus on for clients is, we want to protect your todays, right? We want to ask the question, if you got sick, Jerry couldn't work for 4 years, like, how would the mortgage, utilities, and groceries get paid? So we want to focus on protection, focus on benefits, insurances. Then we want to help clients become world-class savers. The average American saves about 6% of their income. We want to get clients to save 15 to 20%. The third step is we want to help people save in the right places. We call that liquidity. Most people save in a bank account, no rate of return, but you have access to your money. Or they put all their money in a 401k, which grows, but you can't access it. And there's a lot of places in between we'll build strategy on. Then the last step is living debt-free. Not that we focus on that last, but again, there's good debt, there's bad debt, and we just want to make sure we do things in order. So that's my 350-second elevator speech. I kind of what we do for clients, but I don't how'd I do?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. So actually, it kind of triggered a couple more questions for me related to like financial planning or whatever, like finances in general. One is just kind of a comment. Actually, I was listening to another podcast, and the host there mentioned he was talking to a doctor or whatever, and they were talking about money, and the information came out that the doctor is good at what he does, but he's not focusing on the money part. Like, yeah, he's making money, but he's not like, he doesn't have, I don't know if it's the skills or the information about how to manage it well, right? Like his focus is more on the medical side, but not on the financial side. So, I mean, that just kind of confirms what you're doing and kind of niching into the medical field by helping people in the medical field with their money. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, the one comment, a lot of that comes down to cash flow, right? So like if someone, well, we see a lot of times, we'll use pharmacists, for example. So, they go to pharmacy school, they're making sacrifices, then they come out of pharmacy school and they're making, $200,000-$300,000, and then they tend to, reward themselves, and you buy the big car, you buy the trips, the vacations, and, if if you're making $300,000 a year, but you spend $301,000 a year, like that's a problem. So it really
Yeah.
all is cash flow. It goes back to what I said about behavior. It's how do you pay yourself first and put processes and accounts in place where you're forcing the habit. But that tracks.
And the other, well, that wasn't a question, but the question for you would be related to Dave Ramsey, your favorite guy. No.
Yeah.
What do you think of his Peace University in terms of his like baby steps and all of that?
So I think Dave does a great job at helping people get out of debt, and I think he does a great job at giving people some of the skills and accountability. I think there's 7 steps maybe. I think
I forget it.
the first couple are really, focused on the debt side of it, which, I think he's spot on. But to be fair, I think that's where he kind of loses it, in my opinion. So just before I give my opinion, a quick caveat. Dave's not a licensed financial advisor, so he can say things that can't really, like, if I said some of the things that he said, I could be held accountable. And so just for everyone to know, it's not right or wrong or indifferent. He's more of a financial entertainer. He's not a licensed advisor, and a lot of times he'll say things that are absolutisms, right? It's like, this is it for everyone, and I think finance is a little more personal. And I don't know if you happen to, earlier this week I posted something on LinkedIn. I don't know if you caught it, but yeah. So like there's this clip going around of Dave Ramsey talking about childcare, and basically someone's calling in and saying, hey, we're spending $25,000 a year on each kid, for daycare. We're spending about $40K a year for our 2 kids, and the long and short of the comment was, go send them to free, summer camp. Like it was to me kind of out of touch. And I think that's where he gets it wrong sometimes. And I think of examples that I've heard where, Dave will make a recommendation to someone on the radio show without any context of that person's like world. And sometimes it's kind of scary that he's making recommendations after knowing someone, or barely knowing them, or hearing their situation. But yeah, no, I think he does great with debt, but work with a fiduciary, work with a licensed financial planner. At the end of the day, whether it's Dave or CNN or Fox News, I think a lot of the entertainment people want clicks, and they want eyes. They want people to buy their book, and I think that to me gives me a little caution. But it doesn't take anything away from the debt stuff. But yeah, that's my my honest take.
Yeah, no, I think he's definitely has a lot of good points. It's, I don't know, maybe it's like a 80-20 type of a rule. Like 80% of the people that would listen to him could definitely benefit from him, like by following all the steps, and maybe 20% are more kind of nuanced depending on what's going on in their life and so on.
Yeah, I think that's true. But the other thing about that I always caution people, whether it's Dave or anyone else, if someone's making statements that this financial strategy is always bad or this one is always good, to me that is a concern. And I can think of a couple of things that Dave says. He says you should always do this and do this. The world is changing. It is 2024. It's not 1984, right? So to me that is where I have the biggest kind of gripe. And I have clients today, that I could think of that. One client in particular, he told me, he's a Dave Ramsey, he believes in it. He told me, he goes, Frank, we did X amount of baby steps, but now we feel like we need something more. And he's kind of come to work with me, and I kind of see that happening a lot once people get out of debt and feel like they're ready to do the next thing.
And I think that's definitely true. I think a lot of people will use his advice to get out of debt, but then when it comes to investing, it's kind of overwhelming. Like, okay, what do I really do? Where, what mutual funds, what this, that, whatever. And I think that's where like professional help helps a lot.
Yeah, the one thing I remember he said, one of his quotes was, if you have any debt, the only time you should be in the inside of a restaurant is if you're working there. Now, that doesn't like align with me or my clients. Like if I have a client who like enjoys going out to eat, like let's figure out like make that a part of the plan. Like live your life to be meaningful now. So that's kind of where I kind of disagree. I think he's a little hard on that, but yeah, no, everything in moderation, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Anything else you want to mention about your business, or how people can find you?
Yeah, so medprofinancials.com. So that's the website. We specifically, we almost exclusively work with medical professionals. Whether they're nurse practitioners, PAs, doctors, pharmacists. Really, at the end of the day, it's about taking that weight off your shoulder. Right? It's about going to sleep at night with one less thing you have to worry about, and that's really what we deliver. And typically, from a planning process, it's probably a handful of meetings up front with clients. Maybe it's 5 to 6 meetings over the course of 3 months or so, and then it's kind of up to the client. Sometimes people say, "Hey, I want to check in every month." Sometimes clients say, "Don't call me unless there's a problem." I think a mark of a good financial plan is that you don't need to look at it every month, right? Like build a plan, let it do its thing, and don't worry about the ups and downs of the market, right? Worry about your family, have the right cash flow, have the right budget in place. So that's kind of where to find me. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. That's kind of where I spend most of my time. That's my social media of choice. But that's all I got.
Yeah, nice. And then as far as your services, is it just regional, or like in Rochester kind of area, or you go nationwide? Like,
all 50 states. Yeah, so I happen to have a handful of clients, outside of New York, right? Florida, California, Ohio, Pennsylvania, but Texas. But yeah, no, there's it's the nice thing about Zoom today is that we can really work with anyone. So
yeah, nice. So one more question for you: what does the world need today more of?
The world today needs more understanding and kindness, and I think the first thing I think of is just America today, and the political spectrum and people who have their opinions, and I think we're not understanding enough of each other, and everything gets blown out of proportion, and I think we've seen that with 24-hour media in the last 10 years or whatnot. And at the end of the day, we're all people, we're all humans, we're all Americans. Like we're not I don't think we're in conflict with each other as much as the media makes it out to be. And people just need to take a breath, focus on the fact that people are doing the best that they can with the cards that they're dealt, and it's all of our first time on earth, right? Like I haven't done this before, and so if I'm in conflict with someone else, it's their first time on earth as well, and let me show them some grace.
Yeah, definitely good thought there. Well, Frank, thanks for joining me today, and I'm looking forward to maybe many more conversations with you over next years or so.
Absolutely. Love it, Jared. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.